Looks like we have the start of a 6 scalp component upward here, and breaking 27.75. Certainly we've come down so far. You wouldn't be surprised if there was a bigger pullback. Volumes may be starting to fade here at the potential bounce spot. 3s, 10s, 3s, and A looks like they're still down. This could still pop up further if the E and the F move into green. More so. We did have that J attack cross, which may have been responsible for the 2 tick or so move up to this level. That I attack backed off. Looks like an H potentially may be around the corner, and all of that could coincide with the turn in the 3s. But we may be waiting through a smaller chart downturn here before that happens. Could keep us sideways. See if we attack this 26.25 though. Smaller charts. E, F angling down, D, and is about it. A little bit of a turn in the tick and the volume. Maybe seeing that J starting to come for an I attack. Interestingly, that H is still. And just a quick commentary on our H label. Well, we all know that the H is between the G and the I. Just apparently there is some programming challenge that keeps that H from being re-inserted. But of course that missing label is the H.
K attack spiking in here. Oh, and it just backed off right as I was talking about it. Potentially J attack coming into a spiking as well. However, we're having an opposite spike, it appears, or maybe not, with the I attack. So depending on what happens there we go, the J attack is coming in with a D bias and the 1s. So just interesting to track this here again. We've pulled off our most recent bottom at 25.75.
Sorry, in terms of your track, you're looking at a 2-tick target, is that what it is?
Correct, yes.
A 4-tick trail, just to visualize that for people as you talk about that. The 2-tick target would put us right at the, so I might have a lock in the 2 ticks and have a 1-point target, just because that 27.75 is the break. If it moves through that level, it can go a bit higher. Looks like it has a challenge at it right here. Might have opened out there. Looks like that D. Well, there it is. We filled the 2 ticks.
Great
might
trade.
Go higher now. Yep. It went up to the 3-tick level, so wouldn't have hit that 1-point target as of yet. That D didn't move into the green, though our E is now spiking. There's the 3-minute, which we talked about before, that they might ultimately turn, starting to show that, as well as the 5s. But that 2 ticks was the good spot there.
Coming back down here, we were having a K attack crossover, but we do have volume E bias corresponding with that, also the 10-minute ergodics as well with the A bias. However, we are looking at the 5s and 3s turning, one green 5, one green 3 as well. So that is providing a bit of resistance for this channel that was pushing down a moment ago. Sorry, about a couple minutes ago actually. And so just to keep in mind as well, we were watching this downward trend. However, these 5s and 3s beginning to turn might provide some hesitation now for regarding any tracking in a downwards fashion.
And we still have that eye attack approaching with the turning of the 3s. That might, as you discussed there, prove to be some pressure. See what happens with the 1s turning. Volumes ticks already down, EF back into red. So that might, and that D actually is also angled down. So you can visualize turning 3s, providing pressure upward, a bit of an I attack, H attack coming in. 1's still angled upward, turning volumes, ticks. See the change in the EK now starting to spike upward. And EK, in terms of what you were talking about there, wasn't able to get in there. Oh, and my ladder seems to be messing up a little bit with its population of its bracket. I had to manually put that in. Did lose that EK, so on that basis, I guess you would look to exit. Is that correct?
Well, the only other thing that I'm watching is, so we were just shy of an H attack crossover, and so of course I understand that if you're in a trade and the EK were to back off, I initially looked to see if there's anything else supporting this movement because, of course, for some people they may be trading live, and so to consider each trade requires a commission rate, a commission fee per trade, and so if you have permission to be in a trade and plausible ideas that might be causing this trade to still potentially pay off, then it's best to stay in and potentially just watch it more. Of course, that's of course to whatever you personally prefer with your trade. So what I was watching there was this H-Tac was crossing over, and I guess it actually ultimately was the best idea for you to remove yourself from this trade because it hasn't pushed through quite yet.
Yeah, would have got stopped out at that point down at the 27. Again, that really just underscores the point that, everything can change from moment to moment. And, whatever your decision is in that moment, no matter what the market does afterwards, was right. And whether or not it would have been a worse position or a better position if you had have stayed in a particular trade. Oh, there's that jump. There's the J spiking across now, I. So interestingly, this is, again, my ladder is just messing up. I wanted to try to just see about tracking that particular type of, but for some reason, Greg, I can't enter in on this simulated position here.
I've been having some issues on my demo ladder as well this morning.
There we go. I'm able to at least put it in. Let's see. So where I was trying to get in was the 28.25 or so, just on that initial spike with the D and the J.
Of course, it would have filled for 2 ticks.
It would have filled for 2 ticks. 3. Yep. And again, that's interesting. I do not have a target populated.
There it is. It's a 2
well,
ticks.
I just put it in.
Oh, okay.
I manually put it in.
Okay.
And there we go. And again, it's not interesting. There's a significant lag here. Just had to cancel all to remove the stop loss order there as well. So that was basically the DJ with the 3s, the 1's still in play, the 3's turning, the 5's turning for that half a point. So we do have the 5s, we do have the 3s. 5, well, 3's close in terms of our even the more conservative view of things of 45 degrees. B is close as well. There's that H attack. Even might be seen in G potential attack as well. Those 1s I'm a little bit suspicious of, probably in around the 1930 level, just that they've tried to turn red once, twice. The second time one of them actually did turn red. And those volume tick ergodics have been a little wonky here in that whole attempt at turn. What probably contributed to that continued rise was the turning 3s, the turning 5s. And interestingly, we see a J attack red approaching, did back off, EK. Could see a turn in the volume, the tick, and the 1s very sharply and very quickly, which could pull us down to the bottom of this upward 317 trend line. Overall, I still would favor the 5s and the 3s as they're beginning to show more angle, and those related biases are starting to come up as well. That I attack has shown itself green. H attack shown itself green. G may be following suit. Again, smaller charts hanging out at the top of their range. Always that potential that this could be the moment. This 2950 is a little bit of a bounce area, more particularly the 30. Always that potential that the E and the F could drop down, and our smaller charts could come into alignment downward again. That H attack backed off. Five, 3B. EK spiking. This could be a nice, and Greg, I can't get in. I'm actually trying to get in at 2950 or 2925, which was open, with the 5-3 B and that EK that was spiking there. EK did back off, but was spiking nicely at the 2925 level.
Well, we'll just manually track that. That was open. Still is open.
Having connectivity issues, warnings from the ladder provider here, at least on my screen, behind the scenes.
I'm having issues too, but we'll just talk this out as though we would have considered tracking this.
Came back half a point. Seeing an E angle upward again. Not an EK, but an E angle upward. There's the D, the J may be separating upward. 29.25, 2 ticks are open. If you had a 1-point target, well, it would have touched on it and locked in 2 ticks. That would have been the 2 ticks in that view, of the more conservative view of it.
Yep, locking in 1 tick. Mm-hmm. Of course, it would have come back in either 1 tick or 2 ticks.
If you had a bigger view of things with the nice 5s and the nice 3s and the B and now the C coming in, and just continue to hold that with a larger stop, you would still be in. But just the way very conservative, we'll just count that as a 2-tick lock-in. Touched on the 1 point initially. This is a very conservative approach there.
Having a stair-step pattern up, we are 4.5, or we touched on 4.5 points off our low. The market has bounced back this much. There's always a chance it can move back. Actually, we may be heading down here, Darren. The ones, volumes, and ticks. D, J, E, F coming down. We're at the 317 trend line, which is a possible bounce spot. Of course, 2025 is shorter term support level.
I'm just trying to click elsewhere on my ladder just to see if I can put in orders, but
if you hit your cancel all, it'll cancel all the...
I've done that. Yeah.
Okay, because I was having that same issue. I'm still having trouble as well sending orders.
It's interesting there, the ones turned down into this volume tick, so almost had a 5, even close to a 6 component scalp downward. It was right against that trend line though. 3 minutes as well coming into play, even the 5 minutes if you're to draw an upward line in there. 5s are still up. B softened slightly. Bottom 3 softened slightly. Once these smaller charts begin to turn, we could see a jump upward here. Just as I say that, it's happening with the EK, and just trying to, well, it did try to enter there at the 29.25. Again, still having challenges.
And again, this is a simulated thing. Oftentimes live will work. Normally brokerages only dedicate a couple of servers to their simulated trading, where they have many more to their live servers, which makes sense.
So that was an EK entry with the 5.3B. See the ticks starting to turn in behind it, maybe a flashing of the J toward green attack. 29.25 was that open spot when I was talking about that. Still hanging in and around that point of
B just weakened.
Entry. B weakened slightly, yeah. As well as the C, lost the EK. 5.3 is still strongly there. And even if, well, it's still pressing upward here as the ticks start to angle up, that F starting to move into red. But I'll just exit here. There was an open spot at the break even of 29.25. Lost that EK and don't see really another scalp coming in and behind that.
The original setup weakens oftentimes gives us less confidence that it will move up. It still can move up. We've seen even sometimes in the past week where we had a very strong setup, it would weaken, we get out at break even, and then or even a tick or two, and then it shoots up 3 or 4 points. But we've also had other times in the past, Darren, where the setup weakens and we just lost that C bias altogether on the 3-minute replotting.
Restart my ladder, take the moment here to do it.
We oftentimes see that when the setup does weaken, the market can pull back as well. So again, it's a personal thing. The trade becomes a more aggressive trade if you're going to hold on to it. We don't, for our tracking and the track record that we've established over the last few years, the trades that we've been watching, oftentimes we only hold it if there's a transitional trade we can, or setup that we can transition to. There's another setup that's come in that we hadn't seen before, or that wasn't there before. As you say, still strong 5 and 3 ergs. Just much weaker biases. We have a weak green K attack just off.
We don't really have a definitive direction as of right now, and the reasoning for that is because of the 10s. The 10s are conflicting with the 5s and 3s. Now, the 5s and 3s are very dedicated in an upwards fashion. However, these 10s provide contradiction to those 5s and 3s, the pressure that they provide. So that's something to be considering as you consider tracking and practicing and watching these trends that we're watching as well. Just something to consider and to watch carefully, because it does provide contradiction and resistance to a specific direction. And so we'd like to see some of the larger term ergodics potentially come into play here. Now, although while those 10s are resisting those 5s and 3s, the 5s and 3s are still very strong, and so we still very well could have some very nice trends correlating with those 5s and 3s. volumes and ticks are both turning green here. Still have very deep E bias, waiting for that to turn around. Do have a very extremely weak green K attack crossover, and as I'm speaking, it's actually gaining a better angle. However, the J attack is also spiking in the opposite direction, so therefore I would not consider tracking this yet. Okay, J attack is backed off. Now we're having a red K attack. So just watching that again, we don't really have a setup to correlate with that, and the K attack has backed off as well. Still watching these 5s and 3s. They're the strongest trend that we have right now. Although we do have the biases, they're correlating biases, which would be the B bias and the C bias. They're not necessarily angled in the same direction as the 5 and 3 minute ergodics.
Interestingly, Graydon, we've got A, B, C, D, E, F, all angled down with an L attack, sharp red. Let's see, with all the biases in red and somewhat angled down, what kind of impact that has. Just an observation there, just while it was in play, to mention it.
Right. I was also noticing that those volumes began to turn mid-range. You know, they were just turning green, and then one of them started to turn red, and they're actually still turning red. And usually what that will indicate is that since there's so much pressure pushing us in the red direction, and when an ergodic turns before it actually finishes its cycle, it shows that the pressure in that specific direction, in this case it would be the downwards fashion, the pressure is so significant that it's causing an ergodic turn before it finishes its trend, which is very interesting to take into consideration here.
We've been in this range for about 15 minutes, 10:25. Got into this basically 27.75 to 30.25 range. Shorter even, 29.50 to even the 28 level. So about a 2-point range here. See that 10 minutes starting to show itself green, but still there's an EK starting to pop in. 5.3, the EK did back off. Again, just with the bigger biases, A, B, and C all angled down. You may see that G attack cross green, but would like to see some angle on it. Might correspond with our smaller charts, volume, tick. Here's that EK coming in again, 5.3, and it separated. Still need to see the majority of these smaller charts come into the green cycle to overlap with that 5.3 if it's going to do that. 20 seconds for a new plotting on our 3 minutes to see whether or not that changes. B, C sharply angled down with that I attack red potentially coming in and that J separating. Nothing more than just those components here. Ones, they're red at least, though flat at the bottom. Tens are conflicted. Volumes upward to some degree, and ticks are conflicted, so difficult to say. There could be some sharp information upward. Here's an EK coming in again upward. 5.3, the C bias dissipating a bit, and we may see that J attack green come in, which could challenge this 28.75 and then the 29.50. It's a little bit more aggressive. It could be a bounce off of that. That would be the second attack of that downward 317 trend line. Oftentimes, at least as I've understood it and seen as well myself, 2 to 3 sort of retracements before you see a break of a channel line, break of a trend line. That's not a rule of thumb, but it is an observation. We do see there's another potential beyond the 27.50, another potential bounce spot at 26.75, even below that at 25.75, and still waiting for these ones to turn. If these ones can turn in behind the volumes and ticks, we may see a whole change in the related bias dynamic as well. Still have the 5.3 upward. Again, still in a position to see another K green, another L green, and maybe more particularly that J green attack. and that can all come in very, very quickly. We've seen that happen as well. 5-3 in place, a little bit of C bias. EK trying to show itself again. J trying to show itself as a green attack. Ones at the 1044 mark did not fully turn. In fact, they pretty much remained the same. Any J attack that's happening is low in that range right now, though there is a little bit of a green attack. That H looks like it may be separating green from red. And G may be coming close to an attack cross. So we could be looking at a push here. There's the D and there's the J starting to angle. So volume tick D, J, FL. And this could be a push here. Well, it looks like my ladder's working again. And again, this is a little bit more aggressive, as I just talked about it, looking for that break and all of those components coming together. Certainly had that J attack cross and then it backed off. And just from the 4-tick stop loss perspective, Braden, I just locked in that, or reset my thing at the 4-tick stop loss on that.
That was a pretty sudden drop there, down from 29 down to 27.25. You know, I don't really see many other exotics supporting that other than right now we're having this K attack and now a red J attack as well. Pretty sudden movement.
Yeah, and that was, well, as the new plotting has happened. And let's see what happens at this 26.75 level. It did say that that was another potential bounce spot. These ones looked like they were going to turn there and didn't do it, but they could turn at this level. And the trend line in the 317 has been replotted. Still have just 2 attempts at the break of that trend line. This next one could be the third. EF never made it into green. And now we have a softening 3 minutes. So, question, Greg, we have here. Of course, our 3 minutes are softening, but at the time of, had some strong 5-3 ergotics green. Biases B and C were both in the red. Here, let's just hold on a second because we might be having a resurge up here. And this may be what we were looking for before. Of course, our 3 minutes are still softened a bit, but the ones look like they are turning. Certainly those volumes have come in sharply and seen a spike in the E and the F. Still within this channel line though. The ergotics are a set of moving averages, and they reflect a different set of criteria, a different set of calculations, versus the bias in a very straightforward format. Here's an I attack, red potentially approaching, which may come into play as the volumes turn. The biases are, in sort of its simplest form, a representation of the strength of the historical or ongoing reflective strength of the buyers over sellers or sellers over buyers. And with the bias in the red and angle down, not only do you have historically stronger sellers over buyers position, but you also have an increase to that with the angle down as well. And so you just, in terms of the explanation for that, really it is just reflective of what the calculations, the inputs of the calculations are behind the scenes. And however those numbers and the data come in are fed into that. That's the plotting there. What it does suggest, at least for me, is a challenge to really predict in a better view of things the direction of where the market's going to go. Oftentimes we've seen where all of the biases, or a lot of the majority of them, are in red and even angled down, that there's an overweighting to that side, and you can have the strongest set of ergodics in the opposite direction that you could imagine and still not overcome that. You can have an impact on that, and there can be some trend upward to some degree, but overall the trend will be downward because of that undercurrent of selling pressure. And I think that's what we have here right now, is that we've had an undercurrent of selling pressure just with the extent of the biases in the red. We even see that eye attack red coming in now. No real set of ergodics that match up well with that. Greg, was just sort of a run of thought in my mind, but is there anything else you want to or feel to add to that?
No, I think you did a good job of explaining that. Nice H and I attacks coming in red.
Yeah, purely on the attacks here, that B angling down.
Yep, even the A coming in, starting to look to close this gap more.
And the threes are turning, so we may start to see some of those ergodics come into alignment with the state of the bias here. I wanted to look at just entering that based on the I attack there and even the H attack at the time. It might have been possible there in the 26 level, but without really any ergodic overlap. Even in a scalp overlap, you would be relying solely on the attack pressure after it's already started to see that.
These 10-minute ergodics have remained diligent throughout this entire trend of the fives and the threes being up and cycling through, as well as these ones and volumes as well. It's just nice to see that they've remained strong, and not necessarily strong, but definitely remaining red in color, surviving all of these different trends that have come in and out. It'll be nice to see these fives and threes, once they've fully committed. The threes have already committed downwards, and we're still pushing down as well. But once those fives also commit in the same direction, to see what kind of impact it will have overall in the market. Also, something to take into consideration, gas announcements are coming out pretty soon here, so that may have some influence on the overall trend, just because it could provide volatility. So just something to keep in mind as well.
What, Greg, and I think you're looking at something Greg and I are not seeing in our Forex factory. Is that the gas reserves, the reserves on hand? Is that just the statement on that number that you're talking about?
I'm seeing a news article here right now. Let me just go check to double check here.
Have the volume tick. EK almost spiked upward, 1 minute's turning. See the J green. Someone's commenting perhaps an approaching I, H, and even G attack green, possibly. See some suggestion of that. We've come off that 24.25 to some degree. See the threes softening a bit. 1 close, volume, EK tick. Just a whole lot of changing dynamic here. Certainly have that spike of the I in that direction, even the H. G seems to be static, or relatively static at any rate. We've pushed up to this 25.75 level. 26 could also be a bounce spot. More than likely, though, Greg, that gas figure has something to do with the reserves, the domestic reserves, as a number, much the way they also have the oil reserves as well. Threes have come back in again. 3AB, and if we see an EK coming in downward, that might be a nice addition to that with the FL. And even looking for that, if I was able to get in, it was just a little bit slow at the 24.75 level. And having just a little bit of challenge with this simulated ladder, but looking for a break of that 24.25 with the turning ticks and even the turning volumes. 3AB, 10's in agreement, and we can maybe see this move down quite a bit. That hit 23.50, which was in this case a point target. This could be something that allows us to look at that even further, trying to just lock in a tick. There we go. And this could, with the turning volumes, don't see the 1 minute's turning yet.
Again, at that spot where the point could be locked in, or more aggressively lock in a tick and see if it'll drop further.
Yeah, I just tried, oh my goodness, there we go. Just tried to lock the point. And I'll try it one more time. There we go. Interesting, I tried to move the ladder to, or the target to that level, wouldn't do it, then manually put it in, and that wouldn't do it. Clicked again, and then 2 orders went in. So sometimes if you have challenges with your ladder, particularly in a live setting, just remain calm and just adjust as you need to. Don't fret if you can. That was a 3AB with that EK, and it broke through that level. This still could go down further here, Greg, but just lock that point. We had this sort of indication before where we locked a point, and then it, after a period of this kind of activity, continued further down. Don't have as clear scalp information now as we did then. Threes are very nice though. 3ABC, even the DEF now. This could drop down through this 23.25 level, and just want to see if we can even track that with all of those bias angles coming in sharply. Again, this could move down here. Just in terms of our 4-point tracking, if I can lock in 1.5, that would, well, it just came back and took me out of the tick there, Greg. Seemed to have a little bit of jumpiness, and on at least my demo ladder, quite a bit of lag here. Just in terms of the tracking I have, there was that challenge before I restarted my ladder. We verbally tracked the 2 half-point targets before, and so the running total at the bottom of the ladder is offset or short by 4 ticks. Interesting. I think one of those could have, at least if you had been in that target at a point, would have filled that point. But we took the more conservative verbal approach, particularly as they were scalp components. 3, 10, 3AB, all there. Smaller charts angling up here at the moment. We do have a pullback.
that G attack is also remaining pretty faithful here. Nothing too dramatic with the separation. However, it is significant. It is something to be watching. It'll be interesting to see what happens in about a minute here once we have the replot at 11 o'clock, according to the clock on the webinar.
So sorry, just doing a quick recalculation in the background. So it's offset, the running total at the bottom is offset by 2 ticks, by 1/2 a point. That's the offset there. So it should read 11 ticks, 2 and 3/4 point track, including that one point loss that we tracked. Just being faithful to the approach, just being tracked by Graydon here at some points here today as they come in. That I attack coming up sharply with that H. That G attack, actually the red separating from the, it's come back in, all of them have backed off there. So let's see what happens. This could be a bounce off of this 317 trend line and a continued move downward. Don't really have the 3 minutes in play anymore, at least at 45 degrees. 10s are a little bit slight as well, so maybe something on a scalp basis with the majority, if not most, of the scalp charts coming in. We are testing the top of this 317 trend line, even the 5-minute trend line. A little bit further to go on a rise to the 3 and the 10-minute trend line. And volume tick, even 1s at the top of their range. EK spiking downward could initiate something here. Don't see what else is in alignment with that. Those 3s continue to actually flatten more. And of course, the 5s are conflicted. So any move that we have here that may be coming in probably will be in and around the scalp side of things. EK spiking upward, E into the green. That may give some effort upward, and it backed off. Seems to be some pressure upward here, but nothing really to account for it. F angled up, the E spiking, the D, that's C bias turning. So just an overall shift right now in the biases. That I attack may come back to a green cross. It did back off. We do have the 24 as a potential bounce spot. In retrospect, and just looking back, wasn't that what that means, Greg? In retrospect, in looking back, at any rate. Have talked before about those first red arrows in the bigger charts, and certainly in the 10-minute chart there several candlesticks ago, at the 1930-50 level or so. Didn't necessarily have the nicest of 10-minute ergodics, but certainly had a turn of that, not at the top or the bottom, sort of mid-range, but that certainly would have been a nice, though, at the course of it, having maybe a 5 or so point oscillation, and it would have taken, well, as I look down at that first arrow came in at around 9:40, 9:45, so before our session time, but nonetheless, it would have been an hour and 15 minutes of activity there. certainly in this last drop down with the 3 minutes, that first red arrow at around 1925 would have only endured maybe a point of pullback and then had that drop as the 3-minute ergodic became very nice, that one that had been flat at the first red arrow. Those are all interesting observations that I have. Volume tick DEF coming in here now. This may move quickly into something breaking this 1922.50 level, and also the trend line. Be interested to see if these ones can turn in behind it. And just even tracking this, tried to enter there. Maybe still be able to get that. Interesting, oh, there it is. I was going to say it's not populating, and even just targeting. There we go. Tried to target the 2 ticks and couldn't move my thing, and then it did actually move. So that was a 5-component volume tick DEF with a little bit of K separation and L attack. Those 3s or 1s in a position to turn, targeted 2 ticks. Very quick motion, but just able to lock in those 2 ticks there on that 5 scalp, with the 1s coming into position. And then looks like Greg with a little bit of bounce, but it's come right down even further to that 21.75 level.
Grab the low-hanging fruit.
Yep.
Whenever you get to a bounce spot, point of resistance, where we are, we could push through for another 5-6 points down to continue closing the gap from yesterday morning.
See, those 5s have turned, those 10s have come a little bit sharper. Again, we've been seeing at times several instances of potential GH attack. I attacks happened once or twice, and there we have moved down still with that continuation of that 5-component scalp. And interesting, I held that just a little bit longer.
It's always interesting to see the movement after you've filled on a trade, and of course it always seems as though, you know, if it moves ahead a couple of points after you've filled your 2 ticks, you can always think, oh, I wish I'd held that. And of course that's a completely viable mindset. But just keep in mind, you know, you did the right thing by maintaining and targeting your 2 ticks and filling those 2 ticks and keeping true to the system that you've been testing. So just a thought there.
No, good observation. I mean, the last thing you want to do, look at this jump back here with a real sharp turn in the volumes, the ticks, the J coming in, the I, and a turn in the D, right up to that trend line. You know, by critiquing yourself after the fact, all you can do there, all that serves to do is turn a positive into a negative. So, as Greg would often say, you got the low-hanging fruit, you got the 2 ticks, and you're out of that position without much further opportunity to fret or concern yourself. So, fives actually are quite nice. Let's see if other information comes into this. This seems to me to be just a bigger bounce back with the volumes and ticks, but still in the overall trend downwards. So, see the 1s, if they begin to turn. It'd be nice to see if all of those ergodic, scalp ergodics line up. Be very nice to see. See the 3 minutes threatening to turn that I attack green, that H attack coming in green. So we've seen this happen a few times without significant move, but perhaps we might be having a bit of a bigger turn overall in the 10-minute trend line, even including yesterday's activity near the close. But from our activity, it's come down from about 37.50, the high of the morning, to our 20.25. So we've had overall a 17-point move down. So at some point there will be a move up here. 5A, 10, And let's see, we've got the 1E coming in downward here, so certainly would have wanted to track this a little bit earlier. Oh, there we go, finally. Boy, this is just a lot of activity going on here. What's our volume like today? We're 800,000. Yeah, that was something I tried to get in far earlier, but just with the 510A and then that 1E that was coming in. Again, I'll look to lock in 2 ticks, which will end up with the, and there we go, that ends up the 4-point tracking there on the day just by grabbing those 2 ticks. It may break down below this, and certainly with the 10.5A.
There's a breakdown very quickly, a 2-point drop.
Yeah, with the 10.5A certainly, and the ones turning into that, maybe the volumes and the ticks certainly would have supported continuing to hold that, but I just wanted to secure that 2-tick lock in, Greg.
And of course, whenever you hit your target for the day, it's always a good idea. Successful traders that we have heard about and read about and learned from, they always lock in profit on the day. Some are more conservative, some are more aggressive. More conservative ones take their profit and walk, sometimes play in demo, sometimes just shut down and go about the rest of their day. Other people may continue trading and maybe scale back their contracts, maybe being even more conservative on the trades they enter. It's a personal decision, something that you need to figure out on your own.
Actually, Greg, I actually miscalculated. That the earlier one for the tick lock-in, well, actually, all that to say 3 3/4 is where we were at. I should have actually targeted 3 ticks on that one. And that's okay. We will continue here.
Regardless, setups coming in today have been very successful, and I've only had one losing trade, had a couple of break-even trades that we've been able to track.
Certainly the 1E with the tick coming in again here for a drop down, and just looking to secure a tick. There we go. So there's our 4 points. That dropped down real quick, locked in a tick, just to round that out. Again, that is still very strong, and that could continue to move down. That was an opportunity there just for that tick as it came down to the, well, not 1E at the time it was coming in. The E's, of course, gone the other direction here, but in 1975, managed to quickly lock in the 1 tick just for that record-keeping perspective. Still like the 10.5. Oh, the A's actually gone, but we do have the C and then B off the chart, suspecting that it is angled down. One E again coming in with our 5.10.5C, and this is just challenging this bottom level. You'd have the 1EF and the ticks turning down. C with that B. Just a plethora of red information here. And there's a move down here. At least being able to lock in a couple of ticks. And my ladder's just not functioning.
Responsive.
Yeah. It was, as I say, the 2-tick lock-in. Could have had that. Did bounce on 3 ticks. And unfortunately, I can't do much here. I think this still may want to come down a bit again here, but I can just... And one of the things here, the last resort here, is to just flatten. You will typically have a flatten button. And just want to see if this will notionally come down. I would have hit flatten here a bit ago, but again, the 1900 was open. Tried to get the 2 ticks for the lock-in, but my ladder just had a fail to send order error message that came in. Let's see if I can even, there, okay, I was even able to get out there, move it, just take that 2 tick loss, but it was a 2 tick lock-in though, with a normal response to the ladder, or to in the ladder.
Seven minutes in this consolidation zone that we did tap through. See a spiking EF the other way.
Yeah, 3's turning, and we may be seeing something in this other direction. 3, 1. Of course, our biases, Greg, B and C particularly, are so much in the red. That's going to be a weight around the market here, but we could eventually see things begin to move up. There's some sharp information.
We have come down.
Smaller charts. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have come down a long way.
Yeah, almost 20 points now.
At some point, you'd expect the market to maybe bounce off his and at least have a bigger pullback.
Mm-hmm.
You see the 10-minute trend line still 4 points ahead of where we are. 24, 25 area, which you can see on the 317 is a support level, point of resistance.
Did have an eye attack to some degree. That G continues to angle in that cross direction. Maybe indications of a sharper cross that may coincide with the 5s turning, even the 10s. See that B bias starting to angle up here a little bit. Have a potential bounce spot of the 2150. And if we start seeing ourselves develop higher highs and higher lows, that will lean toward us looking at a bigger move upward. Testing the 5 and the 3-minute trend line now as well. Bigger positions or spots here to move through. 3D, that I attack may be separating a little bit. Of course, our smaller charts just, again, back to wonkiness, though that E has gained some real thickness to it. Wouldn't be surprised that that continues to be that direction. There's a J attack coming in here. And that J attack separated quite nicely with that D angling up, 3DJ, and that just backed off real quick. 3s continue to be nice. Just having to, with the loss of that, just take out at a 2-tick loss there. That was a real sharp separation in the J, and we have the D angled up. And then just on that replot, got stronger 1s, but lost the D, lost the J, and that C angled down. I think this still may want to move up, but we lost some of those criteria. 3-1 is there, the 5 starting to turn. There's a J or an H attack, perhaps starting to come in. Again, that G ever closer. 1E, 3, and that D may come back in again. 3, well, that D completely changed around on us. EK, FL, 3-1, and the B just holding in this 2125 level, 2150 as a bounce spot. It's challenging this level. I think it does want to move up, but all those smaller ergodics are just not nice except for the ones. 3-1, B, there's our I attack, or H attack, sorry, coming in. And that may be very close to something to consider with that H attack, as Graydon has talked about, adjacent to the base 3 with the 3-1. And that's just in terms of a tracking look at that. He's often talked about the 2-tick target on that. Actually got an arrow in that situation. Kind of like this as a bigger view of things, but that again completely changed that H attack. Greg just completely went off screen, backed away, and with that 4-tick stop, got stopped out on that one.
Consolidation zone the last couple of minutes. 2025 to 2150. The volume is coming up to 900,000 contracts.
Coming back to that D again, 3D. There's a J separation. Again, that's similar situation, 3DJ. And trying to, well, that's where I was trying to enter at. May still fill. And just with that 2-tick target, of course, the initial push with just the lag in the ladder has already been felt, but it may move up through that level. Tapping on the 2 ticks, did lose the D, but it did fill the 2 ticks there on that original 3DJ. Ones came back in, actually.
This is a case where we did lose part of the setup, and the market still held its own and still pushing, but taking that low-hanging fruit is always never wrong. Whenever you can lock in profit.
Been playing with for much of the morning very thick, bigger biases red.
G attack. It's right on the verge of crossing over. Possibly for a longer term push up. If we can see the 10 and 5 ergs fully commit to turning, that would certainly help in our longer term direction and view of the market.
2250 is that bigger bounce spot. You can see that this could be forming, and we move through the 3-minute, even the 5-minute trend line now coming up to the 10. This could be forming a bottom as it starts to curve upward. 2250 will be a level to get through. Again, the 3's still upward. Those 1s have been in a position to turn for a while. Again, wonky volumes and ticks, oscillating smaller biases and attacks very quickly oscillating smaller biases and attacks. And what had been nicely inclining B and even A bias is now backed off. Volume, or one tick, one volume DEKF brought us back down to the bottom of this channel. 3C. And I think, Greg, with the deeper, bigger biases, some of these green attacks have less strength than what they would have if the biases were in green in terms of a buy situation. We've observed that kind of situation before. Oftentimes we've talked about the old setup 10, where it becomes even stronger, where the bias moves into the same color as the ergodic.
5-minute candlestick, a new one plotted. We notice our 5s became, I was going to say more conflicted, but they're two different ergodic lines came together. One's angled up nicely, the other's angled down, showing a contradiction.
Volume starting to turn here. We may be approaching that G attack green 3C. Again, just so much red bias in the B, even in the C with it angled up, it's still well down in that zone.
Though we have those upward components, we have a 1 downwards, we have 1J,
1 volume
K, volume E has come in.
Yeah, 1 volume, even DE.
J and K backed off.
Tick F. This may form into a 6-component scalp downward. This looks like it's actually in right now, just in terms of a tracking for that. It's right at the trend line, but if this can gather some strength and momentum, even targeting the 1 tick on that, just a tick ahead of the 2025 level. Again, very strong 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 scalp components hanging out at the break-even level here. And again, the 2025 is horizontal resistance. Did tap on the 1 tick several times here now. And we did just fill the 1 tick. Actually looks like it's gaining a little bit more strength to move through the 2025 level, but
and if it can do that, it could possibly move down to the 1875 or low of the morning. Certainly taking the 1 tick on a scalp, low-hanging fruit, conservative, nice and stress-free. Here we go.
so ultimately that 6 component remained strong, and maybe even with the 3-minute flattening behind that, certainly would have gone through the 1 point level.
We were at a point of resistance,
and
just with the entry, the tick was the lower hanging fruit. We could have seen a bounce, and it went through. If someone was more aggressive, they could have, as you say, maybe locked in a point or even more. Do see at 19,000 contracts on the ladder, a few ticks below our low of the morning. BC biases coming in very strong. Still conflicted 10, 5, 3s, but 1 BC, A angle down, D. So come down within a couple of ticks of the low of the morning. It would be interesting if we bounce off that 1875 or if we we continue to push through. Came within a tick of the low. We're pushing right back up here. Volume EK, L, K weakening after its cross.
Interesting, the C bias continues to ankle up 3 minutes at the top of their range potentially. You can see the 1 minutes maybe looking to turn upward. J attack, I don't know if you mentioned that, Greg, or not, but looks like it might be starting to approach as we come near that 2150, 2225 resistance levels. Volume E moving into green. Did have weakish though, green G attack cross. I think that did show itself at the 1130 replot. Still with the overall thick red bias, particularly in the bigger charts, the sentiment is still negative, I think. We first want to see more consistent green action even on the C bias range of things. It's coming up toward that. D bias as well, though it's still in the red. And ultimately we are in a consolidation range of 22, 25, to I guess we're 1875, but that's a bit of an outlier, probably 1950 to 2250.
Watch this volume tick, EF, KL, K backed off, EF backed off.
Mm-hmm.
As we see if we maybe take another run to the bottom. Pretty much in the midpoint of our recent low and recent high. Market's trying to decide if we're going to push up towards our high and break out, following that green G attack cross, although it's angled down, it's not strong, or possibly come down and attack the bottom again.
Conflicted 10s, conflicted 5s. Again, just the thick red biases, A, B, and C. 1s yet to turn. It's still threatening to do it. Volumes ticks could turn down. E, K. Even the J separating on the red side. And the I may be angling toward red attack, which may correspond with the 3 minutes softening and turning. So
we have bounced off here several times. If we can push through, we can have a bigger drop. If we bounce off here, we could push right back up to the 2150, even 2225 area, 2250.
Volume tick EKFL. A little bit of a spike up, bit of a turn in the 1 minutes. Jumped up to almost the top of this range. That would have been interesting to see about maybe jumping on at 20 or 25 level, but 20 or 20, 25 level, but it was just a little bit quick happening. Threes not weakening. Still a great deal of red bias in the bigger charts. And that turn there in the 1 minute might have been what pressed us up here at the top of this range. Still possibly seeing the volumes and ticks angle down, and ultimately those 3 minutes might keep us oscillating here in this range.
Just like every other consolidation range we've been in, at some point we're going to break out. And when we do, we expect the market to move. If we go to the upside, we can head up to the 19.
Sorry, 3CI attack coming in upward here. Just want to test again the approach that Graydon is talking about. 3CI attack. It is in the top part of the 3 minute range, but we see the 1 minutes coming in behind this. And just keeping the 2 tick target and the 1 tick stop, or 1 point stop. Interesting that just stopped at that level. Of course, we had the point of resistance and lost the C, and just trying to, there we go. Tried to exit there. I'm having to click multiple times here to move things, but just took a 2 tick loss there with the 3 and obviously the C and that I backing off, but that was a nice internally 3CI with the I separating strongly. Interestingly, it looks like it's going to push up here regardless. Now maybe on a 1DJ side of things. And that just is a testament on how it's just really jumpy here.
One thing I was noticing was those volumes actually were beginning to turn right as you entered in that trade. Could have possibly offered some counter information there to the original trade that you were tracking there.
Yeah, well, valid point. We had the one spiking as well, and of course in the aftermath we see it moved ahead 1.5 already. So is one of those. I think it's non-trending here at this point, but certainly had that piece of information, 3CI, and the ones. We had the spiking E and the spiking F, I think, at that point as well. It's just
We just moved up to the 10-minute trend line.
Yeah.
If we can continue through here, see if those threes actually come back to angle. Certainly a 1CD now that we're up near here. We could have a bigger push.
3 attacks are spiking simultaneously, H, I, and J, as well as a little bit of the G as well. breaking through here. Moved a couple of ticks already through this most recent high, and now almost a full point here. Had the C spiking up here. Still have this H attack beautifully spiked upwards as well with correlating B bias. 5s are up. 10s are green, not quite enough angle there on that top 10. It's still pretty flat there. 1s are up. D is up as well. J attack is spiking. However, we are having a K attack crossover towards the red side. We've had these tick ergotics also just turn red. Plenty of information, however, still pushing us up, so we may be beginning to see the beginning of a pullback. Overall, I still believe we will be trending in an upwards fashion. We had that H attack back off as well as that G attack that was there just momentarily with that G attack.
The challenge when the market has shot up like this, we were in a trade, and then we get out, then the market does shoot up and shoots up 4 points or so. There's always the inkling to jump in. Of course, we do see that we mentioned earlier, if it did start to move up, we could move up to the 27, 29 range. But there's always the thing in the back of my mind, you don't want to chase the market, because I've oftentimes have just jumped in off emotion, and the market does pull back, because oftentimes it doesn't go in a straight line.
And this could be our pullback, bounce off the 317, 144 trend line.
We may have to see the volumes and ticks go through their cycle. I'll watch that K subside, which it's starting to. You're not going to get in on every trade or every rise. And you just wait for the opportunities to come along. We've had a lot of great opportunities today. We've won a lot of trades. We've lost a few. You're not going to win every one. You're not going to get every jump either, or every drop. But you need to keep your emotions in check, the fear and the greed. Keep your targets in front of you. Track your trades.
One of these 3-minute ergotics is beginning to turn red. Could be offering new information, potentially holding us back from continuing this upward trend. If you look at the 5-minute charts as well as the 3-minute charts, not the ergotics, not to be confused with the ergotic charts, but rather the candlestick charts above those, you can see we have horizontal trend lines, which means that we could be trading, that could be a pretty strong area that would be difficult for the market to break through. Meaning that we might be oscillating through this range here, the top and the bottom of those vertical trend lines, or sorry, horizontal trend lines.
Here we have a 3, C1, and could be breaking through this level. See the EK spiking as well at the 25-50 level, 5-3 BC, 10s turning, and that EK move through with the FL. Let's see if it can continue to move. So I was describing it, would have tried to get the 25 level, 25-25, but it ended up talking about that more than dealing with it.
You mentioned the 3C, actually meant 5C. B bias has come in on that 5-minute candlestick.
A bias, 10s turning.
More conservatively, could have locked in 2 ticks longer. Could hold on for more aggressively, hold on for a bigger trade.
Yeah, as you say, this could be the 29.75 level in terms of where this could materialize to. It'd be nice to see in terms of a bigger trade, but yes, 2 ticks have been open here for a period of time. See the volumes, perhaps the ticks may be starting to turn up as well. C bias spiking. Overall, there's the 3 minutes starting to turn red, so I'll just take the 2 ticks there. Still may continue to move up, but with those flashing 3 minute and the 1 minute at the top, possible that there could be a bit of a bigger pullback, and then still look at this as a base 5 after a more significant pullback. So
if there was stronger scalp information, even on just a couple of the charts, a spiking D or E or F would have made it a lot easier to hold on to that longer as well. But they were weaker. Of course, we have pulled back point and a half from a recent high, which is just the 317 trend line. Still have the 5B on a bigger scale. Just need to wait for some of our smaller charts to go through their cycles.
Coming into almost a 6, well, I was going to say a six scalp chart downward, but the tick just changed on us there. The J attack red, I attack red, maybe angling toward that same direction. Could move us down even to the 24 level. Again, with those 3 minutes turning, that could bode for even a more significant move down if there is a sharper turn, decline in that C bias. Five B still there, that A bias showing some angle, same with the 10s. One's halfway down in their cycle, 1D, EK. Again, that 24 24.50 right now as well, but 24, 23.75. Resistance 1 C D E K. F starting to come in. We may also see a volume angle down. Did see that a little bit in that replot, but and then that flashing 3-minute red. So again, these 3 minutes could start to have some impact here. EK spiking upward, no longer the B, so even the top 5-minute flattened a little bit from what it was. Interestingly, the 10 minutes and bottom one became a bit stronger, but the A bias was lost. A little bit of an EK upward, moved us to the top of this little mini range. Great, and we may be seeing the approach of your 3CI here, possibly.
Right, still slowly moving in here. Hasn't quite gotten there yet, but it looks like it's moving that direction. Having a K-tech separation here, spiking in opposite of each other. And as I'm saying it, we're moving down. We've moved down already 2 ticks or so. Come down, just broke through a support level. And the eye attack did back off, not quite crossed over. It could still possibly cross over, but it did back off from its angle.
11:51 was the 3-minute replot. 3-1-C, well, even till a moment ago, the D. EK spiking downward with that F. So we do have the 24. If it does move down, it'll be a break of this 24, 23.75. That could come in quickly. 3-1-C, bit of a D. That I can come again very quickly as a red across, even though it has backed off. We do have the bounce spot here potentially at 24, 23.75. Volumes potentially near the bottom of their range, but at the moment, 1 tick EF, D in agreement, volume in agreement, so that could provide quick pressure downward. Of course, the 3s are there as well with the C. All of that to say, we could bounce or we could move through. It could be a game time decision here as to whether or not it moves through. Looks like the volumes are starting to turn. Might be a bit of a slight K attack cross indicated. J looks like low in the range, but crossing on the green side. And here we are attacking the 23.75. 3-1-C. I like the 3 of 4 in the adjacent charts. Still would like to see just even a little bit more of that, even before the eye attack red. The J is showing a red. Right at the moment it is showing green. So keep in mind the timed charts are that 1 minute just ahead of the 3 minutes, ahead of the 5, ahead of the 10s. So what you see happening in the 1s, oftentimes you will see reflected in the 3s given a period of time. We do see the green J attack at the moment, not a red, and there could be several oscillations in the 1 minute side of things while there's still one apparent cycle in the 3 minutes, similar to the 3 minutes relation to the 5 and the 5 relation to the 10.
Green J is crossing, as you mentioned, although weak. It's on the bottom of the chart. Oftentimes you'll see much more momentum, more push when they angle up and higher in that attack chart. Let's watch to see if the green K and L attacks actually come in as well. 23.75 point resistance going down. 3C weakening downwards. The ones, volumes, and ticks all at the bottom, looking to bottom out their cycle. Let's see if that actually comes to pass.
Have that E and that F spiking down, the D potentially as well. Looks like there might be a J attack separation red. You might also see that appear in the I. This may be our break of 23.75. Tried to get that. I will do the 23.50 and look for just, again, that 2-tick lock-in. And there was an example there of that J attack red, and then following in behind that was the I attack. Tapped on and now filled at the 2 ticks there. So you can see that J attack started separating red just ahead of the I, now becoming a little bit stronger. So the 23 was the 2-tick target. So as I said, did try to do the 23.75 on that break, but it didn't populate. Had to take the 23.50. And we do see the ones and the volumes and the ticks here starting to turn. So EK starting to show itself upward, FL, and that might bear for a bounce off this 23 level. Overall, we see the 5 minutes starting to flatten. We know the 3 minutes have turned. That C bias can move into red, then overall that might be indications of a more concerted longer term view downward. Of course, if we can see that happen, well, we won't see it happen, very likely anyway, by the next 3-minute plot, but we might see in the next 3-minute plot after that at the noontime, we might see all 3 of those components in the red, and actually seeing that I attack coming in a little bit more pronounced again. But all that to say, we might see a red arrow on the 3 minutes. And just with that early part of the range, having the red arrow, if we had this information here on that replot, we would have seen a red arrow there, and that would have been, as I've said, Greg, you as well, over the course of the last while anyway, it's interesting to see in the early part of those turns at the top or the bottom of the 3 or the 5 or the 10-minute price chart, where we do see a red arrow, more of a long-term fashion, but tracking that. Of course, with this information here, you would expect on the next plotting to have a red arrow, so we've been beginning to track that on that perspective from this position. Is also a strategy to look at, though. You could have to walk through several scalp oscillations in the opposite direction. As long as that overall setup with the 3-minute ergodics remains sharp, that can oftentimes be a nice pronounced move over the course of a period of time.
2250 is our midpoint range between our recent high 2650 and 1875, which could be a bounce spot, but decision point for the market. I do have the 317 trend line we're just coming back to. Don't have trend lines yet on the 5 and 3 minute charts going down, but it certainly looks like we are keeping these in a stair-step type of movement down since we've hit the 2650. So as you say, longer term will be interesting how that 3C will play out. Certainly does look like that there is room for it to move down further. Just need to wait for the smaller charts to oscillate, finish their cycles. Coming into our last minute of the morning here, Darren. It's been a much different day than some of the other days we've had. We've had a lot of trading opportunities. Been jumping at a couple of other setups that before we may have backed off of. A few of the things that Graydon was talking about, he's been tracking for shorter time frames, just a couple of ticks. We've jumped at a bunch of those as well. Graydon, it's been great to have you on here with your commentary. And
thanks so much, guys. Great being on and great tracking these trends with you. It's been a very interesting day. Beautiful morning this earlier on. It kind of slowed down a bit later, but overall very interesting.
Indeed. Indeed. Well, we've hit our noon time, guys, and we did took a handful of trades, and we had, I guess, just looking down the list, had one loss for a point, and a couple of break-even exits, but we did track 4 points there ultimately this morning, and comprised of some of these attack components with setups, and of course very rarely right now are we looking and waiting for arrows. Sometimes arrows do come in coinciding, which is nice. And but as we've noticed in the last while, some of the moves are happening just ahead of time, and that could be owing to just the thinness of the market. Here we still have the three's off a little bit, but 3 BC and that eye attack red. Actually, it's interesting we didn't see a red arrow, Greg, in the 3 minutes at that 12 replot. I thought we would have seen something there, but so as I did track that. We had some ladder challenges just in terms of execution on the demo, just filling, populating, moving things around, and I had to verbally track a couple of minimal two tick lock-in scalps, and then just sort of went to the extras, and ultimately it looks like the grand total at the end of that, and there was probably about 7 or 8 trades there. Had a few losses in that, but ultimately ended up a tick by my record keeping there on that. But I did hit those 4 points early on, which was good to see. And as you say, Graydon, we did have some good trending. Certainly in that bigger move down, just keeping with that overall state of things at the time, was especially with the thickness in those bigger biases, really just gave a weight to the sell side of things, at least early on. So, anything else to add there, guys?
Yeah, I was just going to say, even a few of the trades that we were tracking, the very first trade actually that we conservatively took a point, still lots of indication that the market could have gone down. It sort of hung around that point there for a moment, and certainly taking that point, being a little more aggressive, could have quickly locked in 4 points a few minutes later. A few other trades that we did lock in profit would have come back. We did lock in a point, would have come back and taken us out at a tick or 2 ticks. So certainly understanding what your strategy is, where your limits are, and staying within those.
And just last note, I see my red arrow in the 3 minute just populated there. I just want to see about tracking that. Still a third of the way right now in our 3 minutes, and just more of a long-term view of things.
We have slowed down. It is lunchtime. The 2250 is midpoint range, which is always a decision point. We've consolidated the last few moments, but if we can move through here, it looks like we're tapping to the bottom of this range. We could start to move down. If anyone is here, thank you everyone actually for being here today. If anyone is on this afternoon, always remember to look for strong angles in the ergodics, strong angles on the biases, nice sharp attack crosses. And Darren, you did a great job keeping calm and cool amongst all the activity that we had, leading us on the way. Grateful for your insights, Graydon. And go ahead.
Well, thank you so much for having me on today. It's been a pleasure. Always a pleasure with you guys. So thank you so much for having me on today.
I know you're always busy in the background, but anytime that you're around and you want to jump on, you're always more than welcome. And I think Brandon is going to try to be on as well tomorrow. And we'll be trying to, a few weeks back, he was on and just sort of bantering about different types of setups with the attack crosses and other types of strategies, filters we're adding to the system. Graydon could be on here as well too. So should be fun. We just have a question here. How do we always seem to stay so calm? You know what? It's taken practice over time. And sometimes it is difficult to keep your emotions calm. It's one thing that one needs to conquer. One thing is when one is trading, to make sure that they're trading within their means. If a trade becomes too uncomfortable in terms of the contracts you're trading, that certainly adds stress. Some people trading 5, 10 contracts, they can trade 20, 30 contracts and have no problem whatsoever. Other people, it takes time to ramp up to that. That's why we always suggest starting with a small number of contracts, even 1 or 2 contracts, and take it from there, build success upon success. Everyone has emotions that they have to deal with, some more than others, but we all have stuff here, and over time, I think part of keeping a system in front of you and trying to keep diligent with the system, practice what you do in demo, and just translate that to live, and monitor how you do that transition. And if you find yourself getting